What are you asking again?
Beautiful.
Who's the God of truth?
Who's the God
Who's the God of truth?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Almighty, the Father, the Lord Elohim.
Okay, beautiful. Do you know what the word truth is in the Hebrew in this context right here?
You can tell me.
It's Amen. And do you know what the Hebrew says? It's by the God called Amen.
What did he say?
Okay, bro.
So now
Ahijah stuff, right?
You said
this is your Ahijah conflation.
Hold on 1 second. You said that this is the Father, but wait a minute. In Revelation chapter 3, verse 14, why does the Son identify himself as the arche of creation, the beginning? He identifies himself as a faithful and true witness, and the Amen. If the Amen only one time in the Hebrew scriptures is referenced to God, and here you said it's the Father, why does Jesus identify himself as the Amen in Revelation 3:14?
Nope. Nope. Oh, man. He's at it again. Poor Albee. Yeah, you know, I genuinely think that he actually believes some of the things that come out of his mouth. Yeah, no, that's not right at all. Okay, if you want to go back and play it again, what he's talking about is Isaiah 65:16, right? It says, so that he who blesses himself in the earth shall bless himself in the God of truth, and he who swears in the earth shall swear by the God of truth, because the former troubles are forgotten, and because they are hidden from my eyes. And what Albee is saying here is that this phrase, Belahe Amen, means the God called Amen. So he thinks that this verse is saying, he who blesses himself in the earth shall bless himself in the God called Amen, and he who swears in the earth shall swear by the God called Amen. That's entirely wrong. Okay? God, in this context, is in something called a construct state. Alright? In biblical Hebrew, there's the absolute state and the construct state. Alright? And we see this just from hovering over right here. Masculine, plural, construct. That's what that means. Construct state. Okay? When you see, firstly, this is the word, Elohim, right? In the construct state. It drops off the mem sophit, which, you know what? Let me go up to Exodus 3:15 is a good example that has both, okay? So, and said moreover God to Moses, right? So this is what God said, right? It's not God of or God called, it's just God, right? And you see the word right there, Elohim. It's the full word, Aleph, Lamed, He, Yod, Mem, Sophit. Okay? And you know what? Before we even get more into that, and Yahweh, God of your fathers, right? So as soon as it enters a construct state, the God of something, it drops the Mem Sophit and stops at the Yod. Okay? I've shown this before. This is the basics of biblical Hebrew. This is a free PDF that you can find online. And a construct chain is when the first of two nouns is in the construct state, and it refers to like a relation between those two things. And construct chains can only ever express things like possession, association or allegiance, qualities and characteristics. It can express origin or lineage, right? Like sons of Israel, that kind of thing. It can express materials or like the content of something, right? Like a cup of water. That's a construct state. It can express locations. What construct chains cannot express is a named subject. A construct chain cannot be interpreted as God called whatever. Because that's not what it just can't. That violates the rules of biblical Hebrew grammar. So anyway, this is what I was talking about earlier. right? The construct chain. When you have the word Elohim, which is God, the construct form of that is, it stops at the yod, it drops off the mem sofit, and it literally translates to God of. So like I was pointing out in Isaiah 65, it stops after the yod. It drops off the mem in both situations. So we already know this is a construct state. And then I brought up Exodus 3:15 as a good example to prove that this is a construct state, right? Because according to Albee's argumentation, if here this literally means the God called Amen, then you would have to say that here Yahweh God called your fathers, or God called Abraham, or God called Isaac, right? You would have to say that fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, are all names of God, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I can already tell that some of you Trinitarians are probably looking at these words and saying, oh, but in Exodus it says Elohe, whereas in Isaiah 65:16 it says Belohe, okay? The B, right, what we transliterate as the B, is just the Hebrew character bet at the beginning of this, at the beginning of Elohim. And that's just a preposition. It literally means either in or by, which is why you actually see both of them in this one verse. In the God and by the God. That's all this character means, okay? Additionally, you see how and the God of Jacob, right, is different from the other ones. It says Welohe instead of Elohe in each instance. The wa, that's what this character is right here, is for conjunctions, like and. And that's actually also in this book here, The Basics of Biblical Hebrew. You go to page 30, right? Conjunctions, basic form. Before most consonants, the conjunction will appear as the wa. So this being Belohe instead of Elohe or anything like that has no difference. Okay, this is just the form with the preposition in front of it, in or by. This is the form without that, Elohe. And then this is the form in a conjunction like and the God of, instead of in or by or without anything like that. So, no, this is literally saying the God of truth, okay? And not even just that, right? Like, there is no translation anywhere that renders this as the God called Amen. And you would especially expect to find that in one of the literal translations, if that's really what the Hebrew said, but you don't. God of faithfulness, the God of faithfulness, the God of faithfulness, God of faithfulness. Smith says the true God, right? Like, I don't know what Albee is on, but I really do feel bad for him, because I think that he even believes that. And he tried to tie it to Revelation, where Jesus is called the faithful and true witness, the Amen, as like proof that, hey, you know, there's the Trinity. But it just shows that he doesn't actually understand biblical Hebrew. And really, the only thing he proved is that if Jesus is the Amen, right? Which, I mean, he is. That's what it says in Revelation. The only thing that he's done is connect these two verses where people like myself can now come in and say, oh, the God of Jesus. Because if Jesus is the Amen, and this, if Belohe Amen literally cannot mean the God called Amen, all he's given us is ammunition to use against the Trinity. But no, that is what he said is absolutely incorrect. This does not mean the God called Amen. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to address that.